Dav Chof Aleph Amud Aleph will begin Dav Chof Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom at the 2 dots. We learned previously the Brisa, the Rav Shimon said that if the Kohen Gadol died, they continued to bring the Chavitim, the Mincha of the Chavitim, but he says, and he learns it in Dirshu from the Pasuk, that it comes from the Tzibur. So apparently, therefore, he learns that it comes from the Tzibur. This is the Din Deraisa. So Zok the Gemara Kohen Gadol Shemei is Rebbe Bar Mamal Boi asked the following question. It seems to be Mechlafa Shitza de Rav Shimon. It seems to be a stira in Rav Shimon. Taman Amar Mishal Yarsh V'Hacha Amar Mishal Tzibur. So he says that it seems to be a stira because in our Mishnah, in the Mishnah of Shekalim, it calls it Taman there, but it's referring to our Mishnah, meaning from the reference point of Menachos, Taman is the Mishnah, our Mishnah in Shekalim. So there in the Mishnah, in our Mishnah, it seems to be that Rav Shimon says that Midaraisa, it comes from the Yorshim. The Takana was that it should come from the Tzibur, but Midaraisa comes from the Yorshim. V'Hachamar Mishal Tzibur, and in the Brisa before that we mentioned, it says that the Daraisa, we darshan Midaraisa, that it comes from the Tzibur. It comes from the Tzibur Daraisa, not from the Yorshim. Rav Chia said, is that not a good question? It's a very good question. Also, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Abba B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, and he answered, Dvar Torah Hofstedter Bo Min Tzibur. Midaraisa, it comes from the Tzibur, like the Brisa that we learned before, that the Din Daraisa, it should come from the Tzibur. So what do we mean over here in our Mishnah? But he says, we mean as follows, that even though Midaraisa is Min Tzibur, his kinu shetei bo mitruma salishka. Our Mishnah that says it's a takona, that his kin, it's a takona, meaning not that Midaraisa should come from the Yarshim, meaning Midaraisa, I would say, it comes from the Tzibur with a special collection. It comes that they would have to collect the money especially for that. That's what it means. That it would be a separate collection that we bring, that they would make, so for this, specifically for this purpose. So that's what Shimon said in the Brisa, that it says, Shenemar Chai Koilam, Misha Bris Krusaloi, which is the Tzibur. What was the takana? The takana was that they made a takana that they made a takana that we don't have to make a special collection. It comes from the Trumas Halishka. It comes from the Shekalim that were collected already, that were in the Trumas Halishka. Meaning not the way we understood it originally, that Midaraisa is Yorshim, and they made a takana that's Tzibur, or Midaraisa is Tzibur. But Midaraisa, there should be a special collection. They made a takana, then it comes from the Trumas Halishka. So it says that if the Kohen Gadol died, the Mishnah said that they continue to bring the Chavitim that the Kohen Gadol normally brings. They continue to bring it, but they don't bring it in 2 segments. They bring it in 1 segment. Rav Yosem, Rav Yochanan Mahu, he said that they bring it in 1 segment and not in 2. Shlema B'Shachas, Shlema Ben Arbaim. Does that mean they bring it twice? They don't split it up. It's not like the Kohen Gadol himself, which he divides it in 2. It's not divided, but does that mean that they bring it complete in the morning and they repeat it again and bring a complete one in the afternoon? Oi, what does it mean? Rather, Oi Shlema B'Shachas B'Telo Ben Arbaim. Or does it mean it's done completely in the morning and it's not brought at all in the afternoon? What does it mean when we say that they continue to bring it but they don't divide it up? And if you'll say that it should be brought both in the morning and in the evening because it says Tomid, and we learned out from the Tomid, that the Korban Tomid, that the Mincha that comes with the Tomid, that is brought whole in the morning and whole in the evening, it's brought both times, then I'll still have the following Shaila. Shleishes Lugin Mahin, what about the 3 Lugin of oil that come with the Minchas Chavitim? So normally there, when the Kohen Gadol was alive, it also was divided in half in the morning, half in the evening. Now what do we say in this case when he died? Shleishes Lugin Shachas, Shleishes Lugin Ben Arbaim. Do we say it's a complete 3 Lugin in the morning and a complete complete 3 lugin bein arbaim, it's a revia sehin. Do we say that it's complete 3 in the morning, 3 in the bein arbaim? Oi, lug mechza shachatz, lug mechza bein arbaim. Or do we say that it's only half, 1.5 in the morning, 1.5 in the evening? Amr Chizkiya of Hadot Sri Chalim. So he said also the following shaila. It's required to be answered. Also the following shaila we can inquire. Shnei kumsin mayim. What about the levina? What about the kaimetz of the levina that comes with the chavitim? Do we say shnei kumsim b'shachas or shnei kumsim bein rabayim? In total, when the Kohen Gadol was alive, there's 2 kumsim. Now we say that we doubled the mincha is brought in the morning, the complete one is brought in the morning, and the complete one in the afternoon. Do we say, well, therefore there's 2 kumsim in the morning and 2 kumsim in the afternoon? Or is it 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon? He said that didn't we learn the din of a kaimus of a person is menadiv, levina, how much does he bring? We learn it out from a minchas chayta, meaning ultimately we're learning it out from a minchas chayta. We learn out from the bezicha levina of the lechem upon which we learn out the din of a kaimetz from the din of the minchas chayta. So mala halon shnei kumsin, just like over there is 2 kumsim, meaning for the marachas. Avkan shnei kumsim, here also there's 2 kumsim in total, meaning there is a kaimetz for each one in the morning and 1 in the evening. So therefore we should be able to resolve it on that basis. Rav Chizkiya says, no, you can't, because Rav Chizkiya, by the same reasoning, you should say, we learn out the shear of the oil that's required for the chavitin Kohen Gadol, that it's 3 lugin. We learn out for the Talmud Bein Arbaim. And therefore, on that basis, you should say, Marlan Shleishis Lugin, Avkan Shleishis Lugin. You should say that just like in there's 3 lugin. So in the case of minchas chitim, chavitim is shleishis lugin. So you should say that it should be the same thing. Therefore, we shouldn't have a shaila about the oil. But nevertheless, Rav Yochanan did have a shaila about the oil. So therefore, you see that doesn't necessarily resolve the shaila that we have in this case where the Kohen Gadol died. They also made it the kana. The Mishnah says they also made it the kana that there should not be me'ilah with the ashes of the paraduma. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman Shem Rabbi Yochanan, and he says bedin hayesh yimalav. He says that, but in the Raisa there should be a din of me'ilah. Ve'in gazer shlo yimalav, but they made a gzera that there shouldn't be me'ilah. For example, the Brisa says that it refers to the paraduma as a chatas, like a korban, like a chatas, which teaches us that bo moilim. So it says moilim bo in it, in the paraduma, bo moilim ve'ein moilim ba'afra. There's me'ilah in it, but not in the ashes. So we see over here that in the Raisa there's no me'ilah. The Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Abo, Brei Shoina Haya Mish Takchikin Bo. Originally, when there was no me'ilah, and they weren't geyser me'ilah, and it was mutter, the people were mavazet. They were mavazet the ashes. And they used to use it for medicinal purposes and put it on their wounds, on their sores. The gazer shimalaba. And therefore the Chum were geyser, that even though Midrash is mutter, they were geyser, that there's mila, and therefore they should not be able to use it. But Kevan Shenigdru Gazer Shlo Yimala, but once saw that the people restrained themselves and they kept themselves from doing it being mavazet, therefore they lifted this Isser. And therefore it went back, it reverted to the Iker Din where it's mutter. Valakinim, the Mishnah says that also they made this takana that if there are birds that the people came who were machusri kapara, they came and they deposited money to bring for their karbanos for the kinim, for the birds, if they became disqualified, the replacement came from the tzibur. And Yosef says that the one who was had the concession to supply the birds for the Beis Hamikdash, he also, part of the arrangement was that he had to supply the replacement ones for the disqualified ones. The Gemara now says in a similar vein regarding the Mishnah that we learned at Daf Yotes, that if coins are found equidistant between two shofars, if it's found between the kinim and the oilers, it goes to the oilers. So practically more. But however, Haisha Zoyis B'Maimis compares. If it really came from her, the ones that are for a chayva, for her, the korbanos that she has to bring for a chayva, and she doesn't have a kapara if you don't bring it on her behalf, so how is she going to get a kapara? Amar Rav Yitzchak Tanai Bezdin, who it's a Tanai Bezdin, that we say that Hamasapik is a kinim, Umasapik is a psoilas v'esa. He says that it's a Tanai Bezdin, that we have to supply. We have to be makriv korbanos on her behalf. If we do have a scenario like this, then there has to be replacement korbanos that are brought. Who's the one that is in charge, who is responsible for it? And the obligation is on the same as we learned in our Mishnah. The obligation is on the one that has the concession to provide the birds. If we do have a case where there's coins that are lost and are found, and therefore we do have this possibility that the Isha will not have a kapara, they have to bring replacement birds, and the one that has the concession, it's his obligation to provide the replacement birds. Haralach perak mois shenim so, haralach perak mois shenim so, haralach perak mois shenim so. Zak the Mishnah. In a similar vein, now we're going to learn about other things that are found. So we learned in the previous parak and the previous Mishnah about coins that are found. The Mishnah called Haroikin Hanim Soim Rishalayim Tuarim. That if there's roik, if there's spit that's found in Shalayim, it's deemed to be tor. Now, if this roik came from someone who was tomei, it would be tomei. If it came from a zav, for instance, then it would be tomei. Nevertheless, in Yerushalayim, most of the people are assumed to be Torah, and therefore the roik that is found is also assumed to be Torah. However, chutz mishel shuk elyon, except for that area, the upper marketplace, we'll see in the Gemara why that's different. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi Yomi says no. Bishar kol Yomi Masechet. During the year, regularly, when it's not the regel, then we say sheba emsa tamim sheba sarim tahir. What's found in the middle is tomei. What's on the side is tar. Meaning, the majority, whoever the majority is, they use the middle of the road. The minority keeps away from the majority. So therefore, during the course of the year, when it's not regal time, he says even in Yerushalayim, there's tamei. Therefore, the people who are Torah go to the sides. They don't want to get mixed in and become tomei, and therefore they stay to the side. So in order not to come into contact with the people who are tomei, they stay to the side. So therefore the roik that's in the middle of the street is tomei. What you find on the side of the street is assumed to come from the people who walk on the side of the street who are Torah. So it's Torah. Ubishas a regal, but at the time of the regal, it's just the opposite. Shebe'emsa tahir, and what's found in the middle is Torah, shebetstarim tomei. Because the minority goes to the side. So on the time of the regal, the majority of the people are Torah, the majority of the people go to the middle of the street. The roik that's in the middle is presumed to be Torah. What's on the side is presumed to be tomei. Kol ha-kelim nimsoim b'Yerushalayim. If you find kelim in Yerushalayim, derech yerida lebeis tefillah. If it's on the way down to the mikveh, tomei. So they had a mikveh that they used to be toivel the kelim. So therefore we say that even though we find, normally we say that midrabanan, if you find kelim, we assume them to be tomei. Then in Yerushalayim, that we say that it's different. In Yerushalayim, that we say that if it's on the path that's leading to the mikveh, they used to have two roads to the mikveh, one for going down to the mikveh, and for the people who are going to bring their kelim to the mikveh to be toivel. The other is that when, after they've been toivel, they go up and they leave the mikveh. So if it's on the way to the mikveh, it's presumed to be tomei because people are taking the kelim to be toivel. It's presumed to be tomei. If it's on the other way, it's presumed to be tar. It's presumed that it's fell after the tefillah, the person lost it after the tefillah, and it's tar. So derech irida lebeis tefillah tmei, v'derech aliyah tahir, shaloi kirosan aliyosan, because the camel that were brought up is not a place where they were brought down. It's not in the same status, doesn't have the same status as brought down. Rameir, that's what Rameir says. It's on the way down, it's presumed to be before the tefillah, and on the way up, it's presumed to be after the tefillah. Rabbi Yomi says, Kulan Torah, he says that they're all Torah. He says that the Chama were not Geyser Tuma on Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim, it's most of the Kalim are assumed to be Torah, and even if it's on the way down, we still would assume that it's Torah. Maybe it fell from a person who was not going down to be Toivel Kalim. Maybe this Kali was not the Kali that was Tomei that fell. Maybe another, he was going down to the mikveh, that maybe to be Toivel a different Kali, and this Kali fell down. Since most of the Kalim are Torah, he says that even on the way down, we assume it to be Torah. He says, however, min asalva ma'greifa v'amaritza miyucheres l'kfaras, except for the kelim that are used for a basic forest, a basket, a shovel, and hammer that they use for the basic forum, for transporting bones to the forum, they are assumed to be tomei, but other ones are assumed to be torah. Another din regarding if you find kelim, sakin shenim sabar balsar, if you find a knife on the 14th of Nisan, can you use it for the shlit of the Korban Pesach? Now we just said at the time of the regel, things the kelim are assumed to be tor. So what is the shaila here? No, because what we said before is legabe truma. But legabe kachim, even at the time of the regel, for it to use for kachim, we don't assume that the kelim are tor. So you need a separate chazaka to assume that they're tor. So therefore, if you find a knife on the 14th of Nisan, now most people, we're making an assumption over here that if a person is anticipating to use a knife for the Korban Pesach, if it was tomei, then he would be toivelet in order it. If he was tomei on prior to the 14th, he would have been toivelet, and so that it would have hair of shemesh, that after the tefillah it would have nightfall, and he would be able to use it in time for the Korban Pesach, to use it to shech for the Korban Pesach. That's assumption number one. Assumption number two is we're also assuming that whatever was lost was found on the same day, because since there's so many people at the time of the regel, whatever was lost would have been found immediately. So therefore, if you find a knife on the 14th of Nisan, on the time that is needed for the shafting for the Korban Pesach, it's assumed that the owner lost it on the 14th. He didn't lose it previously, because if it was lost on the 13th, it would have been found by somebody. So therefore, it's assumed to have been lost on the 14th. If it was lost on the 14th, this knife, if it was tamei, the owner would have been toivel it the day before, in order that it should be ready and be able to be used for the Korban Pesach, so that it would have tefillah and hair of shemesh, and it can use it for the Korban Pesach. Therefore, if you find that knife on Erev Pesach on the 14th of Nisan, the Mishnah says, sheichet b'miyad, you can shech right away, it's assumed to be tor. B'shleish also, however, if you found it on the 13th, then you can't use it. Sheinu matbel, you have to be toivelet, and you have to be toivelet again, meaning even though the owner might have been toivelet, you can't rely on that, you have to be toivelet, because maybe the owner lost it before having a chance to be toivelet, and maybe it's tomei. So if you found it on the 14th, we would say by the end of the 13th, certainly the owner would have been toivelet, so that it could have hair of shemesh, it could have nightfall, and be usable for the next day. But if you found it on the 13th, you can't assume that he was toivelet yet, because maybe it is tomei, and he has not yet been toivelet. So you have to be toivel again. Kupitz, if you find a meat chopper, a cleaver, then you have to be toivel again, because by the Korban Pesach, the halach is the Torah says well, you can't break the bones. So this would not be used necessarily, or could not be used rather, for the Korban Pesach. So it was not be used necessarily on Erev Pesach at all. So maybe Maybe it was Tomei and the owner has not been Toivelit. Maybe it was only going to be Toivelit on Yudalit, so you have to be Toivelit. Chalar Bas Relios B'Shabbos, if the 14th falls on Shabbos, then you can say, even if you found this kupit Sheichet B'miyad, we can assume that the owner was Toivelit from beforehand because he would need this to do the chopping of the meat on the next day, and he can't be Toivel on Shabbos. If Yudalit falls on Shabbos, he couldn't have done it. It can't be Toivel on Shabbos. It's also to be Toivel on Shabbos. Therefore, he must have been Toivel from the day before, so he can use it right away. B'chamish also, however, if you found it on the 15th, now on the 15th, the owner would have certainly have anticipated needing to use it. Therefore, if you find it on the 15th, Sheichet B'miyad, you can use it right away. Whether the Yudalit is on Shabbos or not, the owner certainly would have anticipated that he's going to need it by the 15th, so there would have been a tefillah and a Erev Shabbos by the 15th, and therefore you can use it right away. Nimsek shur l'sakin, if you find the kupitz is tied to the sakin, therefore we give it to din, harei sakin. Since he tied it together with the sakin, it must be that it has the same status as the sakin, so if you can use the knife right away, you can use the kupitz right away. So even if normally we would say you couldn't use the kupitz, but if it's tied to the knife, it has the same status as the knife.